What's going on, guys? This is Miasin. So the reason why I'm so happy today is because I get to showcase my favorite deck in action, which is Cyber Dragon, featuring a brand new card that we just got in the Megatins. So this only exists in the TCG at the moment, and it is Heavy Polymerization. So it is a normal spell card that reads Fusion Summon one Fusion monster from your extra deck using 3 or more monsters from your hand or field as material, and you can also banish monsters from your extra deck as material up to the number of monsters your opponent controls, but you lose life points equal to the total attack of monsters banished this way when the monster is Fusion Summoned. Even though we can summon a monster and take a lot of damage, it's not going to be the end of the world because we can still reap its benefits. And the thing about Heavy Poly is that if we can get to summoning something like Chimera Tech Rampage Dragon, this already gets so much stuff going that we can easily kill our opponent. Anyways, before going any further, you already know the drill. For the glory of Cyber Dragon, smash the like and subscribe button, because if we can get to 1,000 likes on this video, I promise you guys like a compilation of all the best Cyber Dragon combos that we can make, including like every single build, like Trap build, OTK, Runic, anything you name it, you got it. Anyways, this is the only combo that I really get to show because that's the only new card. So Heavy Poly featuring your opponent having like 3 or more monsters. So Summon Rampage, takes 6,300 damage. It's not the end of the world. Destroy 3 back row, and then Rampage again. By the way, all of the back row that we're destroying, they're always going to be useless, right? Because we're playing the best deck. If we weren't playing Cyber Dragon, then those back row would be like Solemn Strike, Solemn Judgment, and nasty cards. But no, we're better than that. Anyways, send the Hurts and Core, and then Hurts recycle back the Core. Normal summon, and then get your search for Cyberload Fusion, which we can use right away because Heavy Poly is a 2-in-1 package deal. Not only does it summon Rampage, but it also fuels or banish, which is something very positive because now that we summon Rampage, we can summon another Rampage off of that Cyberload, and then we can use its effect again, send 2 more Light Machines, and obviously we're skillful at the game, so we got the Board Breaker to go along with it, and then we can make a Seeger, boost the attack with the Rampage by 21, and then that is going to be 12,600 damage. Just make sure that you link off the Rampage that wasn't summoned off of Cyberload, so that the one summoned off of Cyberload is still there, because Cyberload Fusion prevents you from attacking with any monster other than the monster that you Fusion summon. So yeah, just keep that in mind because you really don't want to be misplaying at this point. Alrighty, so for the deck profile, not much has changed, but I'm still going to be going over everything just to make sure that you understand. So I am playing 3 Machine Duplication in this build because I really want to play this into like a going second deck that really OTKs the opponent and make sure that our opponent doesn't have fun. He can have his fun, that's fine, but I'm going to kill him for sure, guaranteed. And Machine Duplication with the amount of low attack machine monsters that we play, this card usually will work out. So we got Core, we got Hurts, and we got Nexture, as well as the Zaz Blaster, which I want to say is the reason why Machine Dupe is really worth playing. Otherwise, without this card, Machine Dupe just doesn't have enough targets, and you're way too reliant on your normal summon. But because of this card, we can go Special Summon the Zaz Blaster in an empty column, and then we can go activate Machine Dupe and then summon 2 more Disaster Blasters, and that way we can make Nova, Infinity, and we still have our normal summon and everything. And obviously that Nova can revive back a monster, which you really want to take full advantage of every single time we have the opportunity to do so. Core is obviously the best normal summon in the deck, and Emergency gets you access to it, which is really good. And obviously if you have Core and Hurts, or Core and Emergency, or Core and Galaxy Soldier, or Core and Repair Plant, you get to make Cyber Dragon Infinity and SPO Knight if you're forced to go first. You still have some options at your disposal. And obviously Forbidden Droplet and Clockwork Knight can also be interruptions against your opponent. However, this deck is absolutely trying to blind second. Going first in Cyber Dragon, maybe not ideal. This deck does suffer, like I said, from a lack of consistency. It is a very reactive deck. You do have to wait until your opponent commits to a certain extent on the board before you can start doing things. Otherwise, you're not going to have the necessary gas in order to push through boards, which is the reason why I chose to cut the monster stealing cards from this deck, because I used to play Mind Control, Change of Heart, and everything. I want my opponent to summon 3 or more monsters so that Heavy Polymerization is live, even if my opponent has the negate for it. I have so many cards that can bait interruptions or negate effects and everything, to the point where I think this card should resolve. And even if it doesn't, this card is not once per turn in any way, shape, or form. It's not a you can only activate once per turn, and it's not a you can only use once per turn. So yeah, as long as this card you can use it again and again, it's gonna be fine. And you only lose life points when the monster is correctly fusion summoned. So if it gets negated, you also don't banish anything. You can argue that banishing for cost would have been great because you can at least use the Cyberload, but it's honestly not the end of the world. And the Heavy Polymerization, this addition to the deck, really made Cyberload worth playing, because honestly before that, Cyberload in the OTK build, I was a little skeptical about it. I think this card is also going to replace Duality for this deck. Duality, it's nice when you can Contact Fuse for Fortress and then tribute it, summon Cyber Twin, but it's not that great because it does rely on Clockwork Knight, whereas this card is kind of self-sufficient. You don't need to rely on anything else in order to make it work, which is the reason why I like this card so much. Anyways, double Galaxy Soldier. Obviously, I'm not trying to play 3 because this card is bricky. I'm not trying to draw 2 of this card ever. 1 Repair Plant. This card only really searches Galaxy Soldier. But if you want to, you can also search Jizukiru. And there is another card that might be interesting as well. It's not that you're trying to search it, but Carnot to the Eternal Machine is a level 10 light machine. You can send it off of Rampage and then revive back, so it's not super garbage, but it's not like amazing either. Cyber Ref system, maybe you can play it or you can cut it. So the fact that it can't be destroyed by card effects means that once you summon something, your opponent cannot like princess it away and then destroy it, which sometimes allows you to push through certain boards. Overload Fusion, this is especially a triple tactic thrust target. It used to be a Predaplant Verte Anaconda target, but yeah, times have changed unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess. Cyberload Fusion, obviously the one triple tactic talent, which is also a thrust target. Thrust is the MVP for this deck because it gets you your board breakers and also your consistency cards. Double Lightning Storm and Duster. I am absolutely terrified of trap decks in this deck. This is, I want to say, your worst matchup by a significant margin. And then 3 Clockwork Knight, 3 Forbidden Droplet. Clockwork Knight is deeper than you think because this card can also behave as a Floodgate. This kind of reminds me of the Stealth Kraken and Ghost and Match combo because, and also Zombie World, because you change the type of the monsters to machine. And with a card like Rivalry of Warlords, then it can really hurt your opponent like double. So you can even main deck Rivalry because you're only really playing machines in the first place. And Clockwork Knight in the graveyard, you can also banish it and then search your deck for any Earth machine, which is pretty much only gonna be the Theron King Regulus. There is no other good target for this deck. And honestly, I don't really think you need it for anything. If you want to side one copy of Therion, you can definitely do so. And you can also play the Field Spell if you want it, because it also gives you somewhat of a grind game, but it's not a necessity, so I don't know if I can really recommend. And Droplet over Dark Ruler. Dark Ruler prevents you from dealing damage for the rest of the turn, which kind of defeats the purpose of trying to play an OTK deck. Same thing with Evenly. If you're playing Evenly in Dark Ruler, you might as well play another build of Cyber Dragon. It can work in Cyber Dragon, but you're gonna have to play the deck completely differently. We are trying to kill. That way, we need these kinds of cards instead, where we can still inflict damage and get some stuff going while breaking boards and making sure that that our engine goes through. Anyways, for the extra deck, there is double Rampage. There are 3 ways of summoning Rampage, so Heavy Poly, Overload, as well as Cyberload. Technically, when your Nova dies by card effect, in your possession is sent to your graveyard by your opponent's card effect, you can special summon a Machine Fusion monster from your extra deck. Even if your opponent goes Dogmatica Maximus effect, you can send Cyber Dragon Nova and something else, and then the Nova can trigger to summon like Rampage or even Invoke Merkaba, but that doesn't really come up too often, so I think 2 copies of this card should be enough for the most part. However, I do not think there is a way to recycle this back to the extra deck. You can't make a Rampage using a Rampage. It's also not a Cyber Dragon monster, obviously. Double Mega Fleet, double Fortress. Mega Fleet is there because Link monsters are still a thing, and Fortress you need to because Clockwork Knight makes it so that this card is pretty easy to summon, even if your opponent summons 0 machines. However, one thing that I do have to add is that Fortress, sometimes you want to summon it with your own monsters because it is a level 8 Dark monster, which does matter because if you can summon this and have a core on the field, you got a level 8 Dark and a level 2 Light. So you can make a Chaos Angel made by Light and Dark, so all of your monsters become indestructible by battle, and your Synchro monsters are unaffected by monster effects activated by your opponent, which is relevant because some decks like Snake Eye or whatever, if they don't have cards like Imperm, they're really gonna struggle outing a Chaos Angel. Anyways, 1 Infinity, double Nova. You can also try looking into playing a 2nd Infinity, but honestly, the extra deck space is super tight. Same thing if you want to play like a Zeus, you can also try to squeeze that in. The Chaos Angel, I think you absolutely cannot cut it if you try to play a Chimera Tech Fortress and the Clockwork Knight. Typhon, I think this might be a cuttable card because you're trying to OTK anyways, and this card, usually when you're summoning it, you're not really killing your opponent, but sometimes you are. It really depends on the game state. Seeger, obviously this card is a must because it allows your Rampage to have 42, and Rampage can attack thrice, which means that 42 multiplied by 3 is 12,600 damage. I love saying that. It almost makes me feel smart, just because I've done it so many times, but trust me, you never get bored of it. Every single time you play this deck, it always feels like you're playing it for the first time and you're just having so much fun with it. Anyways, SP, Almirage, and then Relinquished Anima. Almirage is still needed because of the interaction between Core and Repair Plant, so you normal summon this, you search for the missing piece, and then you link it off so that your Repair Plant is live. You can only use this card if you have a Cyber Dragon in your grave, because apart from that, none of its effects really matter. And Relinquished Anima is there so that you can turn your Hurts and your Nexture into this, and then, I don't know, if you nibbed your opponent or if your opponent misplayed, then you can punish him for that, but honestly, it doesn't really come up too often, so Anima might be one of the very few cuttable cards in the extra deck. Anyways, for the idea section, I guess, if you're committing to like an approach with a lot of board breakers and no hand traps, which I really do recommend if you're playing heavy poly, this card really clashes with hand traps. You can play cards like Regeki or Dark Hole or whatever, and then you can also play cards like Cosmic Cyclone for your bad matchups like the trap decks. Mind Control, Change of Heart, I guess, but I don't know if I really recommend necessarily. Evenly, same thing as Dark Ruler. I mentioned this is not the correct build to play this card in. For going first overall, or as a side deck conversion tactic, which is something that I have done in the past, you can technically side deck like 15 traps in Cyber Dragon. Post game 1, your opponent, he might go like, okay, well, your deck is an OTK deck, so you go first, and then you just replace all your board breakers with a bunch of trap cards, and you get to actually win the game that way. You would be shocked to know that trap cards are not bad at all in Cyber Dragon. You can play cards like Trap Trick with Overflow as well as Heavy Storm Duster. The interaction between Overflow and the Duster is really nice. So you can chain the Duster to your own Overflow, destroy yourself, and then search your deck for a Cyber Spell or Trap, so you can search your Emergency, your Cyber Load, and then you can follow up with an OTK on turn 3. So that's what happens when you're forced to go first. Because if you have to rely on making an Infinity with an SPLO Knight every single time, it might just not be enough. Unfortunately, it's actually kind of easy to break. Anyways, Ice Dragon's Prison with Heavy Storm, we mentioned that. Unending Nightmare, one of my favorite cards in the game, really good at destroying your own Overflow and getting rid of Floodgates. Rivalry, again, insane with Clockwork Knight. Goes in match, clashes a little bit more because even though all your main deck monsters are light machines, Rampage is dark, Mega Fleet, Fortress are dark, Chaos Angel, Typhon, SP Lone Knight, and yeah, the random ass El Mirage and Anima, but that's also not super relevant. And finally, Shadow Imprisoning Mirror for decks like Qbel, but again, if you use Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, it also affects yourself, so you can't kill with Rampage, but it's not the end of the world, you can still grind it out with Infinity. And finally, Grave of the Super Ancient Organism. This card covers level 6 or higher special summon monsters. They cannot declare an attack or activate their effects. So if you can use this card against Despia, you can grind the game out, even going second, even if they resolve the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare Lock against you. They don't really have an out to this, so this card is always good. And again, it doesn't really cover you because all of your monsters are level 5 or lower, and this is only for level 6 or higher special summon monsters. Absolute perfection for you. Anyways, that's all I had for this Cyber Dragon combo video and deck profile. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts about Cyber Dragon in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.